Welcome to Season 2 of the Psych Sessions Network podcast Teaching Matters, co-hosted by Rob McIntarfer of Lincoln Public Schools and Eric Landrum of Boise State University. These 10 episodes in our second season were recorded from the beginning of May through the beginning of September 2021. And as you will hear, we wander and meander quite a bit. However, there are themes for us that emerge, such as the roles that AP Psychology and IB Psychology play in U.S. high schools, the continuing challenges of assessment, and how scaling innovative pedagogies makes utilizing those principles all the more difficult. To take a deeper dive into understanding the IB Psychology world, we invited Casey Swanson, a Michigan-based educator, to join us as our first guest on Teaching Matters. We broke away from our typical conversations in other ways, too. For one episode, we chatted about Albert Bandura, and Eric shared some stories from his own personal interactions. One episode in Season 2 had to be marked explicit. And if I repeated that word here in the introduction, then I would end up having to mark all of these episodes explicit. We end Season 2 stumbling on what perhaps could become a subtitle for our Teaching Matters series here. See what you think. Teaching Matters. Oh, Rob, but Eric? I am not going to give you any more context than that, my friends. You'll just have to listen. Please enjoy listening to Season 2 of Teaching Matters. Oh, Rob, but Eric. I'm in the midst of the end of my spring 2021 semester. I am knee-deep in grading, heading to commencement, prepping for a summer semester. And can we chat about grading?
Let's do that.
I don't know if there's been a survey done recently about the love-hate relationships that teachers have with their jobs and job tasks, but grading has to be one of the most undesirable aspects of our jobs.
Yeah, I think that is mutual between K-12 and college.
Yeah, and it's really funny. So I teach an online class that ends today at 11:59 p.m. and the Blackboard links go away. No one can submit anything, and there are going to be people who are really close to passing the class who are going to fail. And by the way, there's no joy in that for me. There's no, sometimes students think, oh, he gets a kick out of doing that. No, not at all, quite frankly. And my wife, Lisa, always dreads today because she knows it's going to put me in a foul mood. And it puts me in a foul mood only because I know students are going to fail who had the capacity to pass, but they just procrastinated or they put things off. Now, the pandemic gives students a lot of additional layers of why that could happen, but a vast majority of my students it's a pass-fail class. That's why I'm not talking about specific letter grades. And it's just, the frustrating part is a couple things. To see students who have the capability of passing, not pass. But then, as we know, there are a subset of students who, over the coming days, are going to take it out on me. You mean I failed a class because I didn't get a file name correct? You mean because I couldn't set the margins on that assignment where you're trying to teach me APA format? You mean I'm going to fail an entire class because of what to them looks like a minor error? And my answer is, yeah. You are.
Because that's one of the things that decrease their overall average into that range, right?
Yeah, it's actually a course set up on 15 pass-fail assignments. And as soon as you pass all 15 assignments, you pass the class.
Yeah.
And they know that from day one in August, and they have 16 weeks to complete. There's only one deadline today.
Wow.
Yeah, and they get feedback, and it's mastery-based.
Sure, so they have multiple opportunities.
Absolutely. I've had some students turn in assignments 11 times.
Yeah.
But yet there's such anger sometimes. And I get it. I totally get it. But at the same time, And the things that we all want to say that we can't ever say, right? If after 16 weeks, you can't name a file following the course rules that I gave you in the syllabus in August, or I'm sorry, in January in this semester, then maybe you're not ready for the next course. But of course, I'm never going to say that to someone. But this is one of the hardest parts of the job for me.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And I had similar feelings at the ends of my classes when final grades had to go in. It sounds like, at least in this situation, but tell me if I'm wrong, that when a student asks you that, you mean I'm going to fail because I didn't get the file name right? The answer is a little bit more nuanced than what you said. It's yes. It's also yes. And you didn't try that often enough, right? Because they could have gotten it
Give
wrong.
yourself enough time.
Right.
That's right.
They could have gotten it wrong the first time, used the feedback and gotten it right. So I don't think it's really accurate for them to say, wow, Dr. Landrum failed me, or whatever they call you, because I didn't get this wrong. I got this one thing wrong. It's because it would have been great if you would have gotten it wrong and then used the feedback and made it right. And that's why you can't get credit.
Yeah, no, I am very confident that what I'm doing is to the benefit of students. And, I have the data about how when new collegiate hires are fired from their first job, that the number 3 reason is failure to follow instructions, the inattention to detail. So there's a reason why I designed the course the way I do. There's a reason why I have these rules. It's a course that the department has collaborated on, and they know what I'm doing and they appreciate it. So I don't have any problem with that. It's, and I'm not looking for sympathy or pity. It's just I'm human. And so, the emails that say, you're a jerk, you're an asshole. I can't believe you're giving me a failing grade because I didn't do this one thing. And, as we all know, as professional educators, you can't come back with the thing you want to say.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm really sorry you waited until the 11th hour. If you look at the syllabus, there's a warning in there about don't wait till the 11th hour.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself at a higher risk for failing the course.
And I'm really sorry you get those emails. And I know you're not looking for sympathy, but it just because the mastery orientation in the class kind of changes in a way what the grade means relative to most of the grades you and I got as high school and college students.
Yeah.
Because your grade is the grade the student worked their way towards. Often the way I was graded, and I presume the way you were graded, was the grade that I was able to get the one time you let me show you what I could learn. And those are super different measurements.
Yeah. I mean, in the course of a semester, and again, not every course can be set up the way this one is. And these are 15 relatively independent assignments. We're not building content where you need week 7 to understand week 9. So they're relatively independent. This technique, this model would not work for every course. It's a little bit unique. And I like the self-paced model. I've had a student finish this course in 4 days.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's doable. I invented this course in 1998 here at Boise State. Other people teach a really comparable course other places. And I've been teaching it online since 2011. So it's a little bit cocky to say this, but I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I know where the pitfalls are. I know where the student hangups are. I've redesigned it a couple times. The last time I redesigned it, I had 2 undergraduates sit with me for a semester who had been in it. And we went through the assignments one at a time. We updated readings. We clarified instructions. I split up some assignments that were confusing. I mean, I really wanted to be as good of an experience as it can the way it is. But it's still, that this day is not a pleasant day. Let's just put it that way.
No kidding. And I think we've inherited a lot of cultural baggage about grades that you end up bearing the brunt of and teachers end up bearing the brunt of. So the way in traditional grading systems like the ones that we experienced, we kind of think we know what an A through F means as far as what kind of student you are. I mean, we'll often still hear people talk about this as an A student or a C student,
Right.
like it's a personality type. And that's not lost on students. I mean, students, no matter what we say, they look at the system and they see grades as a measure of worth. And they're not
Right.
supposed to.
They internalize that as their worth. Oh, Rob, you're exactly right, of who they are. And so
Yeah.
I have to work to be careful with my language when I'm teaching other courses other than what I'm talking about, and say, your performance in this class was A level
Right.
or B level. And, most students at Boise State don't know the verbal interpretations of what A, B, C, D, F means.
Right.
A is distinguished work, a B is superior work, a C is average work. And
Yeah.
so there's no shame in earning a B.
Right.
B is superior work.
Yeah. And we're fighting culture. And you and I know enough about social psychology to know that's an uphill battle at best. I mean, we can say whatever we want to say, but when the rest of everything is telling students that if you're smart, you get an A, if not, you're not,
Right.
that it's super tough to battle.
And part of this is our fault. I mean, we're part of the system. So we have a scholarship that says, okay, you get to keep your scholarship if you maintain a 3.8 GPA.
Yeah.
Which means that students start thinking about, I'm getting a B plus in a class, but I better drop it.
Yep.
I've worked my butt off all semester long, but I'm doing air quotes for the people who can't see us. I'm only getting a B plus. That's going to drop my overall GPA because it's, a 3.6 on the GPA grade point scale. So I'm going to drop it and retake it, which is a waste of money and probably a waste of the student's effort. Although they'll probably get an A next time, but it's just, we are part of the problem for sure.
And so's our history. So bell curve thinking, and my Brewerisms are over my shoulder. And this is something that I think Charles Brewer and I would have disagreed on. And there wasn't much, I don't think, but I think we need to eradicate bell curve thinking in the context of grades out of our hearts and minds, but we sure aren't successful yet. And our students pick up on that. I was doing some digging into Benjamin Bloom. I was looking for a quote and I found an entirely different quote that I liked even better. He was dogging on bell curve thinking in education back in 1956. And this might be something that we could start teaching in intro psych. When should you expect a normal distribution and when should you not expect a normal distribution? What Bloom was saying was you should expect a normal distribution given an untreated sample, basically. Before intervention, often for many variables, you should expect a normal distribution. After an intervention, often, in many situations, you better not have one. And if your class isn't an intervention that budges the normal curve, what are you doing?
That's a great example. So that sample of non-college students who have never had any intro psych, given that multiple choice exam, and you might expect an actual normal distribution. But, I remember Charles, not only in his Brewerisms, but also in person bragging about, there's only been 3 people in my lifetime who earned an A in my research methods class.
Yep.
Or I think maybe Bridget Martin Hard, one of his students at Furman, or maybe John Batson talked about there was only 1 or 2 students who ever earned an A in this class or that class. And he was very proud of that. And I will give him his props that he can be proud of that. I agree with you in what I think you're saying, which is I wouldn't be proud of that because I think A performance should be attainable by any student. And part of the responsibility of making attainable is my skill as an instructor. And then the students got to meet me, I would like to think halfway or at least halfway. So to design a course that's so difficult that distinguished level work is unattainable. This is my interpretation only, with all due respect to Charles, that if I were to do that and take that approach, that seems more like an ego stroke to me that I am just teaching this course and nobody can get these multiple choice questions are so hard. You're not going to get them because nobody gets an A from Landrum.
Yep. It's a radical difference between norm referenced and criterion referenced thinking, or the goals of grades in my class are to parse differences between students versus the goals of grades in my class are to be a marker of what they know and have learned. And I'll personalize this for a second. And I bet other people had the same experience that I'd college. I was all fired up in my first year in 1987 at University of Nebraska-Lincoln to become a chemical engineer. I loved chemistry, was super excited about chemistry. Took intro chemistry survey course, and unbeknownst to me, it was a pre-med weed out course.
Okay.
So the way that I learned later on from other professors as I was getting an educational measurement degree, that what happened deliberately in the department, and I don't know how common this is, was they set up exams that the professors taught whatever they wanted to, but they set up common exams across those intro chemistry courses. They standardized the exams to produce a bell curve. They curved the results of the exam, and they knew from the beginning that only X% of students were going to get A's, B's, C's, and D's on the exam, regardless of student performance. So if I get a certain percent right or a certain number right on the exam, that doesn't necessarily mean I'll get an A, B, or C. It means that depends on who else is in my class.
That's right.
Because they presuppose at the beginning, they only want X% of students to come out of the intro class because they can only handle so many majors in the MEP pathway. So dopey Rob McIntarfer, freshman at University of Nebraska-Lincoln, takes a chemistry class, and I get a C, which was horrifying to me. And that communicates to me, change your major to philosophy.
But Rob, do you have any idea, do you remember at all what your ending class average was?
It was pretty poor. It was curved up to either a C plus or a B. But numerically, it was lowish. It was at between, I think it was in the 60s, something like that.
But the point that you're making is that you earned a C grade, but you could have been in the high 80s and
could have been
earned a C grade in a norm referenced class.
Sure. Yeah.
Your grade wasn't necessarily based on the number. It was based on the relative standing against your classmates.
Right. Which is bell curve thinking, which is it's a different philosophy of what the grade is supposed to mean.
Yeah, you're competing against your classmates because they're using it in a really lazy way as enrollment management.
Right.
And they could have used other markers. They could have used GPA. They could have people apply to the major. They could use a prerequisite course sequence to control access to the major, but they're being super lazy in that program by doing that. To my philosophy, from everything I've read and my own experiences, I should be clear here. The only legitimate reason that I'm going to get in trouble. We may have to edit this part out. The only legitimate reason a good instructor would use a true curve. I don't mean, a lot of people are sloppy about curve. When they say curve, they say, I'm going to add 5 points to every student's score. That's not a curve. A true curve means top 10% A's, 20% B's, 40% C's, next 20% D's, bottom 10% F's. To me, that's a true curve.
Right.
No matter what the scores are. The only reason to do that is when the entire class scores abysmally low.
Right.
That's when you curve, because if the class out of 100 points, if the class high score is a 62, and you typically would grade 90, 80, 70, 60, applying the curve is doing something generous.
Right. And given all that, I think underneath this story and underneath where we started with students being angry at you because they think you gave them something rather than them working their way into something is a communications issue. And we're fighting this tremendous cultural uphill battle with the baggage that comes along with A through F grades. So I'll just throw out an unworkable potentially unworkable idea, but I'm becoming increasingly convinced that that this battle is so uphill that maybe we need to look at a different model. And the models that I see working actually come from elementary schools. And I don't know what the elementary schools in your area do, but our elementary school, all elementary teachers, and the elementary report card is a true standards-based report card. And we talked about this in a previous episode about Alverno College, where just blow up the model, get rid of the baggage, saying, tell students, okay, here's what we really mean. You're not going to get A's through F's because no matter what we say, you're going to interpret those the way you interpret them.
Right.
Here's what we mean. You're going to learn these 4 things in this class. I'm going to give you a mark on these 4 things. It's going to be separately. I'm not going to average them. I'm going to give you a separate mark on these 4 things, and you're going to be able to take that mark and look back at something that says that mark means you can do this. And that's it.
So I know we're getting close to our time, and I may have told this story before on a earlier episode, but like I said at the beginning, I'm just going to tell it again. Maybe listeners didn't catch it the first time, or maybe you don't remember it. I did a study maybe 10 or 15 years ago, closer to 15, called Grading Without Points, and it's published somewhere out there. I can make it available if people want it. And I think it was a research methods. I had a couple sections, and it was people had to opt in and volunteer, obviously. But I told students, if you want to be part of this, here's what I'm going to do. I have to grade, obviously. I have to post a grade at the end of the semester. You know that. But if you opt into this study, I'm going to grade everything for you all semester long. I'm going to give you the exact same feedback I always would, but I'm not going to give you points. I'm not going to give you points on the papers I return to you. I'm not going to give you points on a daily quiz or whatever I was doing, the rough draft of your introduction and research method. I'm not going to give you, I'm going to record points in the grade book. I'm just not going to tell you about it. So you're going to get all the feedback, but you're not going to have to worry about the hassle of points or fretting over points or turning to your classmate and going, what'd you get? No, what'd you get? You won't be able to do that. Now, you can opt out at any time. And of course, I am going to be recording the points. I'm just not going to be marking them at the top of the paper before I return it to you. And I think I had about 90% of the students in my course that semester opt in to that. And at the end of the semester, there was no performance difference between the people who opted in versus opting out who didn't participate. But there was a satisfaction difference. The students who opted out of getting that feedback all the time about grades were much more satisfied with the course. They actually liked grading without points, getting feedback without the points. At least that semester and that slice of time, they actually appreciated that experience. Although it did not make a difference in their actual grade in the course.
Yeah. That's super cool. I just found that and I'm excited to read it. Thanks.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago, published with a student at the time, Karen Dietz. And yeah, it's one of those things I just kind of wanted to play with because I was tired of, the kind of the grade grubbing type of thing. And, I just wanted students to concentrate on the learning and stop thinking about the points. And I got an 89, but if I beg for one more point, it'll be a 90. That'll make it an A minus. And another topic for another episode. At Boise State, years ago, we switched from A, B, C, D, F to add pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
But it's not mandatory for faculty members to use it, and I do not.
Interesting.
Because I think it's detrimental to students, and I have reasons why. So I don't use pluses and minuses.
I predict we're going to be talking about grading in at least one more episode. Just
at least.
Another point of synchronicity. My blog is called Not for Points.
Oh my gosh. And I've read your blog entries. I just didn't remember that was the title. I'm sorry.
And a topic for another time, maybe, but a jumping off point. I've read a little bit, some educational historians looked into the history of percentage grades and A through F grading. The summaries that I've seen are, it was never really based on anything except historical accident.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's never any basis for 70 being passing, 60 being passing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
All the time, there was never any standardization. And what really popularized percentage-based grading, I think K-12 and college, was the rise of digital gradebooks.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by that. I mean, the whole A to F thing came out of Yale in the 1880s. If you read some of Howard Polio and Milton and those folks, they write about, I'm going to get the Latin words wrong, pejores and optims and primes, and how in Rome they would separate students into groupings, and that's where the grading of that, separating student performance into categories came from.
Cool. Ooh, I've got something else fun to read. Thanks.
You're welcome. And where was I going with that? So yeah, that whole 90, I'll tell you one more thing before we close out.
Yeah.
So a couple of semesters, again, probably 10, 15, 20 years ago in a class, I decided I'm not going to do 90, 80, 70, 60 by tens. I decided I'm going to do it by eights.
Sure.
So, but I told students ahead of time, very first day of class, the A cutoff is 92%. The B cutoff is 84%. The C cutoff is 76%, and so on. Oh my God, you would have thought that the world was coming to an end. And what really pissed off students that semester were the ones who earned 91%.
Sure.
Because in a world, they would have expected their A, but they earned a B.
Yep. Yeah.
And okay, one more, Rob. I know I keep saying I'm going to stop. I don't do percentages anymore in any syllabus because I am done with it's an 89.999%. And that's actually 90%, which is actually an A or an A minus, which I don't do A minuses. So everything I do is based on points.
There you go.
And I have played with courses that are worth 1,000 points, 10,000 points, and 50,000 points.
Yeah.
Just to have fun.
Boy, we have a lot more to talk about with grading, but probably not right now. But yeah, that's a good topic. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, you bet. We'll see you, buddy.